Welcome to Coffee and Change. I'm Bill Kirst. As a business professional, a U.S. veteran, a lifelong learner, and an active listener, I help others navigate, understand, and adapt to our ever changing workplace and world. As a third culture kid, I call many places home. Presently, Seattle is where I explore my creativity through the power of words and images. In this podcast, we journey with our guests, gaining knowledge and inspiration from their stories. Hey there. Welcome back to Coffee and Change. Let's face it, we live in a world where everything is designed to be faster, easier, and more automated. We order groceries without speaking to a clerk. We message our colleagues without ever looking them in the eye. And more, we move through our days without noticing the people who hold us up along the way. Today's episode is about noticing. Levi has given over 14,000 rides as an Uber driver. What's striking isn't the miles he's logged, it's the humanity he's witnessed. For a few minutes at a time, his car becomes a rare space where people lower their guard. A place where someone can unburden, confess, or simply sit in silence without judgment. Levi reminds us that in an era obsessed with efficiency, it's these small, inefficient human moments that matter most. This conversation is a challenge. To move differently in a world already saturated with automation and disconnection. To choose presence over convenience. To remember that being human isn't about how quickly we get from point A to point B. It's about who we see along the way. Let's dive in. Good morning, Levi. Welcome to the Coffee and Change podcast. Thank you for joining us from your car.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be an amazing conversation, and how apropos that you're joining us from your vehicle. So good morning. How are you this morning?
Thanks, Bill. This is 100% where I spend all of my time. I am an Uber driver, as you know, and this is all I do is I sit in the car.
Well, I appreciate you joining us from a unique studio today. I would love to start off a little bit. First of all, I want to acknowledge we're both veterans. Thank you for your service. You were in the Air Force for 12 years. I was in the Army for about the same amount of time. And I always love connecting with veterans. But I would love to start off with a little bit of an origin story, because one of the things I find fascinating is sometimes we come across content on things like LinkedIn, and we think that we find the content, but I'm a believer that the content finds us, not too dissimilar than your passengers find you.
Right.
And I'm not even sure how I came across your content, but I'm really glad I did. So I would love for you to maybe give us a bit of an origin story, and then we can sort of expand from there.
Yeah, sure. So I failed golf pro, joined the Air Force, spent 12 years on active duty. The Air Force sent me to grad school at Syracuse. While I was there, kind of fell in love with entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So instead of going to DC to be a policy wonk kind of guy, I stuck around Syracuse, did some entrepreneurship things. And COVID, right? So COVID hit, and I was working with a business partner, and I just really kind of just rethought things. I was like, do I really want to be a Zoom meeting Excel spreadsheet guru for the rest of my life? Um, making payroll and stuff like that, or and so I'd started Uber driving kind of by sheer fluke. I was in Vegas in February of 2020, and I was complaining to my Uber driver, as we all do, about stuff. And my Uber driver was like, Bronislav, that's his name too, by the way. He's like, you should be an Uber driver. And I was kind of like, arrogantly, I was like, Yeah, I'm vice president. I've sold a company. Come on, man. You know, it's like, no, no, trust me. You'd make good tips. And so I did. I downloaded it on the flight, registered and all that kind of stuff. And that first Friday, I turned it on like 7 o'clock at night, Friday night on my drive home, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. And I was like, okay, I could do this, and I did. Um, and I convinced my wife that I could make a living doing this. So by Thanksgiving, I had left the company, became a full-time Uber driver. I thought about writing a book, and I was like, "Yeah, but I started creating content, like, and that's where it is. So, yeah, I do. I post a lot of content. I think the stuff that resonates on LinkedIn, quite frankly, are my stories, which actually don't resonate
Yes.
anywhere else, but they resonate on LinkedIn, and so you kinda don't know what's gonna hit and where it's gonna work. But, yeah, so I write these vignettes of my Uber passenger experiences, and, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really interesting too to read the comments. I assume that's probably where you found me that way, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly where I found you, and, I really appreciate, like, us walking us through it, and the way you describe them as vignettes is kinda beautiful, and let me sort of unpack for people that might be listening and not know about this. Essentially, what you do, and please keep me honest here, is you have these obviously, these passenger rides, in your Uber, and you're in the business of connecting, right? And so you connect people through your driving to destinations, obviously, but while they're with you, you have conversations with them and you learn a little bit, sort of nuggets about their stories and who they are and where they're going and who they're visiting and what struggles they're carrying and what hopes they have and dreams they have. And even if it's a short ride, you do this wonderful melange of using AI to generate an image
Right.
that captures the sentiment, and a little bit of the vignette, obviously protecting the anonymity of the person, and it's not their likeness or anything, but what stands out to me and what stood out to me was I felt like I was invited in to this little slice of time between you and this otherwise stranger who shared their story with you, and you got to be the carrier of that, right? You delivered them to a hospital where they were meeting a parent, or you picked them up and drove them to their first day of school or
Yeah.
university or whatnot. And it just sort of tugged at my heartstrings. I was like, this is the this is the connecting economy that we have forgotten about. This is the power of healing even in doses of 10, 15-minute rides.
Yep.
And it just brought so much humanity to this thing that we've kind of gotten to believe it's transactional. So I really that's what stood out to me were these vignettes where they were portraits of humanity. And I would love to like hear from you like how did you think to do this? I mean, obviously, you drive differently, you listen differently, you engage differently.
Mhm.
You're a born storyteller. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to think like, "Hey, after these drives, I'm gonna memorialize them."
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm glad you feel that way about it 'cause, um, I've done almost 14,000 trips, and, I would say 10,000 of them mean something. And so
Mhm.
it's hard to pick and choose which ones are story worthy because they all seem very story worthy because there's some sort of something that came out of that ride, even if they're just quiet and they're not even gonna talk to me the entire time. I think those are some of the more interesting rides. Like, what are they thinking about? What are they doing? You can hear them, scrolling through TikTok, and okay, they're like the last week, it's like people are scrolling through TikTok, and you can hear them, going through Charlie. Oh my gosh, I forgot his last name. Charlie Kirk, the horrible assassination. I'm laughing out of irony, me forgetting his name, but yeah, no, it's like so you can hear something, and I think what people don't understand, even if you've ridden in an Uber, what you don't understand is the Uber driver is alone the entire day. And so I
Yeah.
don't have a coworker, I don't have a boss. There's no like team. I'm not part of anything. I'm literally out there by myself all day. And so you kind of just get a chance to like every time somebody gets in the car, if you are a person that wants to connect, you have to find a way to do that. And so somebody told me I was an empath, and I kind of know a little bit about that,
Yeah.
but I just feel them. I sense that person. And you know where you're picking them up, you know where you're taking them, so you know there's something going on. You can always kind of do it. And every now and then they just kind of They just open up, and I think what it is it's the proximity to each other. It's that there's a whole
Yeah.
world going on around us, and, the car is a great studio, it's quiet in here, and so we could see everything going
Mhm.
on around us, yet, we can communicate, and one of my worst, critiques that people tell of me all the time is that I'm a bad listener. It's been my entire life
Mm.
that, "Levi, you're just a horrible listener, you're not listening to anything that I'm saying." And I think what it is my eyes dart. I'm not a starer. Like, I'm even, like, looking at you, I'm not
Yeah.
looking directly at you. I'm, like, darting
Right.
around, but I'm driving. I can't look at them. So
Yeah.
and then you have to stop and listen to them to hear what they're saying. And so I have to hear not only the words that they're saying, but I have to sense the way that they're saying it. And it's made me
Yeah.
an incredible listener. And you start to pick up on all the different clues. And, yeah, so that's basically how it happens. You just have these moments, and there's just time and time and time again. And every single person, it's unique. It's totally different. I remember, I'll tell you a quick story to kinda give you an idea of what it's like.
Yes, please.
Um, Uber drivers, we make money per ride, right? And, you kinda start to pick rides based on how much money you think you're gonna make. And, I had a reservation. I was picking up somebody at the private jet terminal. I was like, "Okay." So, you automatically think, "Okay, I'm gonna get a tip," and the ride was fine, but I got out to greet her, and she'd flown in just for a board meeting or something. I assume a board meeting because that's pretty common, and she didn't even have luggage. She just had her iPhone with her. It was what an amazing life, right? And so
Right.
you can go amazing different directions just off of that. She gets off a plane, she has got a cashmere sweater, she's got this long flowing coat, and she does all she has is her iPhone, and I'm like, "That's just an amazing life," right? And then a and then she didn't even, like, I just said, "Juliana?" She goes, "Yes." And then she gets in the car, and she didn't say a word the entire time, and then she didn't tip me, and then she asked for a favor. The favor was, "Hey, don't drop me off here. Can you go a mile farther down and drop me down here? Because I wanna walk around before this meeting
Mhm.
starts." That was the only 2 things she said to me, which is fine. I gladly do that favor. So I drove for an extra minute or 2, an extra mile, and I didn't get paid anymore, and she didn't tip me. And so I'm not describing the story or my feelings. What I'm describing is the situation. And I think you, me, anybody, if you wanted to, you can project yourself into it. What is the story there? Is the story kind of like a rich person not tipping the low income person? Is it a story of like asking for favors and not tipping? Is it a story of like just sheer luxury, what it's like to fly off of a private jet? And I'm picking that story out because I think it's very few of us ever get that close to that kind of wealth. And as an Uber driver, you kind of see it every now and then. And but my very next ride was a person I picked up at McDonald's that missed the bus and gave me $5 tip. Gave me a $5 tip
Mhm.
because to them, the Uber was a luxury. And so my only point to all that story is like you can just pull information out of there and then write a story about it. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. Yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of the way I've been
It
doing it.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, I absolutely believe, you're likely an empath for sure.
Thanks.
I'm kind of in this stage of life right now where I get the opportunity to connect a lot with veterans,
Right.
and a lot of us are healing in
Mm,
sort of our late stages of life, and I believe that many veterans are, empaths and don't know it, right?
right.
Because of the type of thing that called us, right? The mission that called us, the service to others, and even in your work that you did in finance and accounting in the Air Force, I mean, when you think about the amount of emotion and trust that goes into money, right, and wealth and earning,
Right,
it's one of the most sacred and intimate things that we in society have been taught and regard.
right,
And so doing that for 50,000 troops is kind of like having 50,000 little empath interactions,
right.
whether you know it or not. Fast forward to you being in your vehicle and this sort of studio. I love the fact that you told that story, and as you told it, the thing that sort of rose up in me was, what if it's a story about loneliness, right? And
Right.
what if being at the top, right, stepping off a private plane with just an iPhone, uh, beautiful cashmere sweater and a long coat, and knowing that that person has to go into this meeting. It could have been a meeting for all we know, it could have been a meeting where that person had to make a decision to lay off thousands of people,
Right.
right? And that person needed to walk in nature for a while before they went in for this very foreboding decision. And, and the aspect of transaction, but intimacy, I think the word you said was intimacy at one point,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's not much more intimate than sort of the exchange of story, but also of currency and wealth, and all this happens sort of unbeknownst to us in this digital ecosphere,
Yeah.
whether it's just a tip or a button or a like, and so much underneath there is the story we don't see, the story that's not being told, but the story we're feeling, and I don't wanna put words in your mouth here, but I imagine to your point around you can't see the body language unless you're looking in the rearview mirror, and even then, like, you
Just the
can't look in the
forehead.
rearview mirror the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the brow, like the furrowed
Yeah.
brow, like
That's
I have
right.
a furrowed brow,
Yeah.
um, and you kinda see the top of their head because 'cause they're looking down at their phone most of the time, but
Yeah.
I bet you sense, like, in your vehicle, I bet you sense they're holding their breath, or there's some grief in the car with you, or there's dreams, or there's celebration. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I think, eh, you can also direct the conversation, right?
Mhm.
I could pick and choose the direction I want to take the conversation. Um, and that's a little bit, it feels manipulative when I say it that way, but what you do is you pick up somebody. So go on to ride number two there, the guy coming from, McDonald's. It's like, hey, that was a tough shift, wasn't it? No, no, it was great. I
Yeah.
got to work a double, but I made some overtime. And you're like, well, they treat you really good then. Oh, they treat me great. And what you try to do is you try not to. I don't ask questions. I make
Mhm.
statements. It's a thing I learned
Yeah.
on another podcast. The CIA does it, and I really try my best not to say, "How was your day?" You try to
Yeah.
ask prompting or say prompting statements that allow them to open up in the direction that they want to go. You could say something like, "Man, the rain has really helped my garden." I don't have a
Yep.
garden, and I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm just making it up looking at this garden here in front of me here. But, I mean, I would say something like that, and now they could take it a lot of different ways. "Oh, you like to garden."
Yeah.
Or, "Yeah, the rain has been really good," or, "Oh, the rain means winter's coming," or whatever. And so,
Yeah.
another good example would be, like, the common thing people always ask is, like, "Where are you from?" Because I think most Uber passengers are, for the most part, they're traveling somewhere, right? Maybe. And so, where are you
Yeah.
from? And I have my canned statement. I'm from Hawaii, but
Mhm.
and then but I'll turn it right back around on them. Like, where are you from? You try to
Mhm.
put the conversation back in their lap. And so, my point is like you can just direct the conversation. And, so if you're picking somebody up at the hospital, or you're picking somebody up at the jail, or you're picking somebody up at the grocery store, or at a fraternity at 2 a.m. or whatever, you can kind of get a sense of what's happening and then
Yeah.
do that. Another thing that I do is I use music as a way to
Mm.
guide the conversation. So a good
Yeah.
example would be like, you know, I must have heard Taylor Swift's "August." I think it's a beautiful song, 8 million times because I think it's a great song to play when I'm driving at 3 a.m. on a college campus. Because
Yeah.
9 out of 10 of my passengers tend to be girls, you know,
Yep.
and I think that song just hits them really, really well. I think "Saturn" by SZA also works really well. There's just a couple of really good songs that I can play that I know sets the mood and,
Yeah.
it allows them to open up, and so you just wanna do that. And again, I don't wanna force them to talk. I mean, I don't it doesn't bother me, but I think you just wanna allow for that. You wanna facilitate it, and I can direct through music, through, the way I might say something to see which way the conversation is gonna go. Then once I prompt that, it's like, almost ChatGPT, I put the prompt out there, then
Yeah.
they get to guide it wherever they wanna go.
I love that. It reminds me of, like, we're obviously of the generation where we made mixtapes and we
Oh,
made
yeah.
mixed CDs.
Yeah.
Um, and if you think about every one of those mixtapes we made or mixed CDs, it was done with intent to spur a feeling,
Mhm.
an emotion, and a conversation. Like, we laid out the tracks in the order that we laid them out so that it would spur something, and ultimately, it was a bid to connect with someone, right? It was like this, whether you gave it to a girlfriend or whatever, like, you'd be like, I hope something stirs in them that they come to me and they open up and we can have a conversation from that place.
Right.
Um, and I love that. I love that you weave music in there, and I can totally feel like I can feel it in my bones when August is playing. I can feel it when Saturn is playing. I can imagine like if you if you put on the song "Hello" by Adele, right?
Right.
Like you might have somebody just open up or start
Yeah,
crying,
the
right?
The
Depending on
Billie
the
Eilish
mood.
song from, Barbie is now hit into that, kinda thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, 'cause like and I think it just prompts those emotions are so real, and I think
And they're right here.
they're right
They're
there.
right at the surface.
That's right.
Yes.
And I think most people what's funny is, I think most people wanna connect. I think most people
Yeah.
want to have meaningful relationships, and I can't because I don't know them, and they don't know me, and we're never gonna see each other again. I think that's the other thing about it that I give you the kind of the examples, the analogies that people say. It's kinda like being a bartender, but the problem is the
Mhm.
bartender, you're face to face, and the bartender is serving other people, and you can go back to that
Yeah.
bar. But it is kinda like a bartender kind of relationship. Then it's kinda like maybe a priest in a booth, because the priest and
Mhm.
you and the priest are not looking at each other. Um, then you still know your priest. I mean, I'm not a Catholic, but I understand that you probably go to a parish or whatever the right phrase is, like that. But it's so temporary, so fleeting. And I think that people go, you know what? I don't know this guy, and I can be authentically who I am because there's no judgment. I even think about like I don't know if you notice I'm wearing like a brown shirt. I keep
Mhm.
my car completely clean. I want them to project whatever things in their life in there. I know a lot of Uber drivers.
Yeah.
I get it too. They turn into a party bus, and that's fine. I think other Uber drivers try to do certain things. They try to like force it a little bit. I think I want to be like a blank canvas and
Yeah.
recognize where I'm picking them up in the direction that we're going, and then their own emotions, and then just build off of that. Okay, I'm picking you up at the hospital. You're crying. How do I build off of that? And not to make a story to post on the LinkedIn. That's not what I'm saying. It's to make that human connection. Meet them where they're
Yeah.
at instead of having them forced to meet me. Imagine a party bus pulling up to the hospital, right? So if I have a blank
Yeah.
canvas, yeah, that's so I think I'm very intentional about all of it.
Yeah, I this is what I love about it. This is what came through to me when I saw your stories was the intention behind even to your point, right? Like this aspect of the way you treat your vehicle, right? It is a tabula rasa. It is a blank canvas. It is that feeling of coming into a place of safety and comfort, but no projection from inside to them. Um, and I think what's really interesting, and you wrote about this when I was doing a little bit of research, and it struck such a chord with me, which is each time you pick up a passenger, it's the equivalent of opening a book in the middle,
Yeah,
and you're starting it in the middle.
and you're ending it in the middle. I don't get
Yeah,
closure.
like I mean, I'm kinda sad. Like, I kinda teared up about that because I think to myself, we're all walking around in this world, and think about how many times we've had these sliding door moments, right? Um, where we come across somebody, they're in our life for a little while, and then they're gone.
Mhm.
And that person could have changed your life. You could have changed that person's life. You may never know. And, the other thing, and I'll just share this, and I'd love for you to expound upon this because it is. I feel the emotion. I feel that the sensation. I've actually been working on this song I've been writing for many years about essentially sort of three personas in which men can have the most vulnerable, honest conversations. Those are um, bartenders,
Mhm.
bandoliers, so like musicians, right?
True.
And barbers.
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting about the barber, I just realized this as you were talking about it, is when men are in the barber chair, they're oftentimes talking to the mirror and the reflection of the barber. They're not actually looking at the barber face to face. So
Er
to your point, it just hit me. To your point, the same thing in the Uber Lyft driver scenario. A lot of times you're only making eye contact with them through the rear view briefly, or when you first greet them and when they leave. That's very much like a barber experience. And think about the intimacy of that,
Mhm.
right?
Then they're
So, yeah, I
touching
would just love
yeah. There's, like, the
Yeah.
sensation of the touch of the barber and stuff like that. Yeah, I could definitely see
Mhm.
that. Um, yeah, and it's a challenge because I would say, hold on a second, Bill. I just noticed my
Sure,
phone
take
is
time.
burning through electricity really fast. I'm gonna take this
Ooh,
out. Tell me if
okay.
does it sound completely different now that I've unplugged that?
No, you're all good.
Okay, I'm gonna just plug my phone in. Um,
Okay.
alright, good. Um, yeah, so, yeah, there's like a real intimacy, and it's a real challenge because I think if let's talk about societal way people describe people. I think of Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. I think a lot of people look at
Uh-huh.
Uber drivers or taxi drivers as lecherous men, right? Especially when you're driving on a college campus. And so there's a real intimacy is the word that I use, but there's like a real barrier that has to be up. I'm a
Yeah.
51-year-old man. I'm driving around 18-year-old college girls. I'd say one third of my night is is college girls on
Mhm.
a college campus. And so you're trying to find that real balance, but I think it's humans we project so much false images of ourselves. I take 100 selfies to post that one selfie on,
Yeah.
TikTok or whatever the platform, it doesn't matter. And I record, a video. I might make 10, 20 takes. It's the Uber experience is the one chance where we can just two people that are strangers can be alone that can really just talk in a safe place and then kind of go about their way. And that's what I mean by that word intimacy. And it's so to me, it just hits I would pay to be an Uber driver. I'm sure Uber's trying to get that
Yeah.
too, by the way. I thi I think Uber I think Uber's mission is to find a way to make that happen. Um, no, because I just think it's rare. It's so rare.
Yeah.
I try to it's hard for me to find other places it's like this.
Yeah.
If I were to go I'm gonna go to a Starbucks here and sit and go work for a little bit when my tires get done, and I won't talk to anybody around me.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, if I go to a library, that's again, you don't talk to anybody there. I'm trying to think where and it just this just doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there a place? Barbershop is pretty good, but you can go back to your barber. I think it's the stranger part to it that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more I kinda dip my toe into this discussion we're having, the more I realize that, it's essential, like, this is why we're craving it, right? The proximity, I think you used that word, the
Yep.
proximity and the
Yep.
intimacy and the anonymity all
Hmm.
at once
All
is
at once.
such a rare equation
The temporary
that
nature of it too. Temporary.
yeah, temporal, yeah, absolutely, and I think I just find so many gems in that possibility, and I agree with you. In some cases, there are people who would probably pay Uber to drive, like, to have this much interaction with humans, and it brings me back to that aspect of there is there's an epidemic of loneliness in this world, and sometimes the only people that somebody might have a conversation with is you
That's right.
in their day.
Yeah. I mean, you imagine so we're in an age of modern work from home. Even if you go work at an office, you put your headphones on and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Yeah, people are finding ways to separate from each other. And the only time we actually interact face to face with people is through a digital screen like the way you and I are right now.
Right,
Rarely
right.
are we just sitting down and talking with people. And I think that brings up a really interesting thing, is that it's going away. This
Yeah.
Uber experience is ending, and, I think a lot of people are excited about Waymos and robo taxis and autonomous cars because 'cause they're like, "Oh, now I don't have to talk to the Uber driver." And I understand that, by the way. I mean, when I traveled a bunch, there were a lot of times I didn't wanna talk to the Uber driver too. And, I just wanted to
Yeah.
get in my car and I wanted to get on my phone or whatever and just do my thing for a brief moment. And so I also understand that too. But it's just like where can we recreate this? Where does it happen? What is in again, it's all of that, the stranger, the temporary nature of it, the proximity, the intimacy of it all, and it all kind of just collides in a taxi, in an Uber. It doesn't happen on a plane. It doesn't happen on a bus. It
No.
doesn't happen anywhere else. It just happens in this one moment. And I think if I could find other ways to recreate it, I would. I definitely would. And so by the way, that's why I do my very best to change the stories up and use
Yeah.
AI to protect that person. I
Yeah.
think I don't
Mhm.
think people understand what people tell Uber drivers. I don't think.
Well, that was my point. That was my point. It's like when we think about bartenders, barbers, bandoliers, and obviously now
Yeah,
Uber drivers,
yeah.
they are these confessionals. Like, and
Confessionals.
it's I think about it, right? Like there's so many men especially who and probably others because of socioeconomic cannot afford therapy or do not see therapy as a potential
True.
option. And they are actually their therapists are those people I described.
Mhm.
And an Uber driver might be that therapist for 20 minutes on the way to an airport. And if that helps someone heal a little bit or feel better or make a better decision, that's an amazing thing. But you may never know that you played that role for them.
Yeah, and I try to I I do write the stories that strike me personally, emotionally the best.
Mm.
Those seem to be the ones that are the hardest yet easiest to write. Like it flows a lot
Yeah.
better, and it's hard because you have to use the right words and stuff like that to get people to feel that way, the same way that I felt. But I'd say a lot of my stories are, you know, cheering people on, giving them the confidence that
Yeah.
they can do it. I think about okay, so the Uber world for me kind of it shifts, right? So today, for the most part of the day, I'll drive a lot of low income people to and from their appointments. Most American cities have really bad mass transit. If you're a person trying to work and you don't have a car, Uber becomes a very viable option. You're like, oh my God, they're spending, let's say $15 per Uber. So say $30 a day on Uber. You're like, oh my God, that's nuts. And you're like, it's $900 a month if they potentially, but that's almost a little bit less than a car or more than a car payment,
I
but
was gonna
not that
say it's
much.
car payment. Yeah.
And if you
Mhm.
can negotiate a couple of free rides with your friends and maybe catch the bus once or twice, you're spending $600 a month on Uber. To most of us, it's like, well, that's absurd. But to them, that's just the only way they can get around and
Mhm.
get to, and they get their time back, right? Instead of an hour long bus ride, it's a 15-minute Uber. Um, but there is this thing of the bipolar nature of our economics and society. There's the affluent and the wealth. And then there's like low income people struggling to make ends meet. And it's really weird. I'll ask them like, you win the lottery, you win $1 billion, you know, where are you gonna go? What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Or something like that, something like that. And the first thing they always say is something like their world is so small. Like imagine growing up in Syracuse in a rough neighborhood or whatever. Their world is so small. It's like, oh, I went to Charlotte one time. I have some friends down there. I'm like, "You want
Yeah.
$1 billion, you got unlimited money, fly private jet anywhere in the world, and your first step is Charlotte." Like, "Well, what are you gonna do with all this money?" They're like, "Well, I might buy a nice car, but I'm definitely gonna start." They all wanna start nonprofits, but,
Oh,
I think
wow.
well, because that's the world they interact with, right? I
Yeah.
I think my world is a bunch of people that start businesses. So you give me $1 billion, I'm
Yeah.
launching a business.
Sure.
Their world is like, and, but what I was saying was is kinda like, I really enjoy, and I haven't really written much about this, but kind of like cheering them on. Oh, you're going to,
Mhm.
let's say a lot of them are like the cleaning people at a hospital, right?
Mhm.
And you can kind of be like, well, I know you're doing a really good job. The doctors, like, oh, the doctors treat us really rough. I'm like, I know, but the hospital couldn't function without you. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. We need you. Of course, we need you."
Mhm.
And they're like, "Well, I'm going to school to be a nurse or whatever." Like, you know what? You got this. You could be a nurse.
Yeah.
I totally could see you.
Yeah.
I could tell you. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up to get a tip or anything like that. I just think it's like I'm in this city and I'm trying to
Yeah.
build it, give it positive vibes, one ride at a time or whatever. So those are like majority of my rides tend to be, I could say that. And then it shifts into the nighttime where it becomes like affluent kids. So I'll drive at Syracuse or Cornell University. So affluent kids
Mhm.
that are really just aloof to the world around them, right? And then it ends at night. And then it ends at night where it's like, okay, the party's over. And
Yeah.
and it's like you're catching them at the very end of the night. It's like, okay, and there's that loneliness comes back, and I
Yes.
I I don't wanna stereotype it, but it's very true to be picking up a young college girl with her shoes in her hands from a fraternity at 4 AM, and you're like
Wow.
and we all know what happened. We all know what
Yeah.
happened, but she's not bouncing out of there like it was a great night.
No.
And I'm not trying to project a moral thing onto this by any stretch right now, but there is obviously a morality to it, and you're like and she's not happy. She's not
Right.
joyous. And you're like, "Well, how's your night?" "Well, it was okay." You can see it was like a little
Yeah.
letdown, and I'm thinking like, I kinda know, I've been to college, I've been so
Yeah.
but you pick up prostitutes, you pick up, guys at strip clubs,
Mhm.
so you kinda get in the
Mhm.
seedy world as the night goes on. And you kinda get into that part, and so you see I don't know if that makes any sense, so you got, like, the working,
It does.
then you get to the
Yeah.
party, and then you get to the seedy part, and my night kind of flows that way, interjected with a couple of airport rides in there every now and then. But yeah, it's to
Yeah.
me, it's like so you see the whole city too, so I know every s pothole,
Yeah.
I know and I can drive in a neighborhood and go, "I given that person a ride, I've given that person a ride, I know that person," so you start to
Yeah.
boo it all, and so the writing became an outlet for me to almost get some of those heavier stories
Yeah.
off, 'cause it was weighing me down. The long walks couldn't help sometimes.
I really appreciate you saying that because, I think what's really interesting is, like, twofold. One is the writing was helping me unburden, right, the weight. Um, I think that's so important as a fellow writer, as a poet, as someone who
Mm,
has felt sort of the catalyst and also a little bit of the chrysalis of writing for me. It's just been such a life-saving, regenerative thing for me. So I appreciate that you name that because I also walk a lot, and the walks do so much, but the putting pen to paper does so much more, and the combination of the 2 is really great. I think the other thing which I am sort of picking up, which I really did not think about, is through your windshield, you literally have almost an unfettered view of community. And in
um,
your case, it's Syracuse, which is actually a part of the world I've never been to. Um, but it's just interesting for you to be, again, with these people briefly and then see them later, right? As a student on a campus or walking through a community. I mean, I'm asking this question for me because I
sure.
would have a hard time with this.
Yeah.
How do you not later engage, or maybe you do, maybe you say hi, but again, there's that borderline of like, I don't wanna be a creep, but I wanna check if they're okay. How do you balance that?
I don't
Ugh.
say anything to them. I've given no, I've probably given 500 people multiple rides, so it's not too
Yeah.
uncommon. Like, there's a really good story that's sitting out there that I haven't written yet about a McDonald's manager. He spent 27 years as a manager at McDonald's. He's really proud of the work he's been doing for that franchise owner. And when I
Mm.
take other McDonald's workers, they know him, and so Dion is his name, and I was it's so funny that we mock McDonald's, right? As a whatever kind of profession, and he's proud of it, right? He loves the new menu items
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So there are the repeat customers, um, but yeah, you're right. If I saw the college girl that I picked up that was crying at 3 a.m. and I picked her up again, um, I would almost pretend like I didn't know her
Yeah.
because I think when she told me that story, she was in a different state. I don't and I think sometimes they don't even recognize me. Um,
I was gonna ask that. Do they ever say, "Oh, it's you again"? I mean,
there is a
I would.
yeah, there is a little bit of that. I I have a short window, I think, right now. I've been really
Mm.
lucky to have my YouTube channel take off, and
Yeah.
so when you're getting millions of views on a video, I have had people get in my car, be like, "Oh, you're that YouTuber," you
Oh,
know?
interesting. Okay.
And I'm like, "Yeah." So I feel like my own anonymity
Mm.
is kinda going away,
Yeah.
and, so I think that's also out there. Yeah, when people tell you that story, whatever that story might be, um, I think that's between you and them in that ride.
It's
That ended
sacred.
that sacred. It ended at that ride, and if they want to bring it back up, that's their choice. But for the most part, if it was an intense, difficult conversation, I leave it at that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I've ever had that repeat. Like, say, almost all my repeats have been, like I say, most of my rides, 90% of them are just either A, somebody wants to get on their phone and we just say nice things to each
Yeah.
other, or we talk about current life and it's a really good mood. Like I say, it's the dark ones because this ride opens it up to that. I think most of us get it's interesting, it's emotional for me, and the writing
Yeah.
is trying to tell everybody else out there that this is what it's like being an Uber driver. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm really trying to get out there. I want other people to go, "Wow, wow."
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened with me was, wow, like it sort of stopped me in my tracks. Like I was doing the typical scrolling and I was like, whoa, hang on a second. This feels different.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why. So, without getting into too much detail, I would love
Sure.
you to maybe just talk a little bit about your writing process as well as the AI imagery process, because I find that part fascinating. You're kind of like this, like modern day Raphael and Michelangelo that's kind of crafting and it's
Oh,
working. So, tell
I
me a little bit
appreciate
about
it,
that.
yeah. Like with, Michelangelo, any other creator too, there's iterations before that are finally hitting, right? So the writing
Mm.
process for me kinda does a couple of different ways. Right now, the last month or 2, I've really just sat down. I use Apple Notes,
Mm-hmm.
and I craft the first sentence or 2. I just sit down and just write
Mm.
those first 2 sentences over and over again. I found that first interaction, I just dropped a story, where the guy asked me if I F around, he used the vulgar word, of course.
Mm-hmm. I
And
just read that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. And so that was stories for 2020 that happened a long time ago, and that's literally exactly what he said. And
Mm-hmm.
and so, but so that first line was kind of there, but how do I get people into the story? And so I kind of like craft that first sentence or two from there, and then throughout the day, I'll start voice to text, adding more to it, and reading it.
Yeah.
And then once I feel like I have something that I like, then I'll go into ChatGPT and say, "Oh, this is what I like." And typically ChatGPT adds a couple of moments of flair that I really, really enjoy. So with the
Mm.
that story that you just read, I actually leaned into the poker analogy, and it helped
Mm-hmm.
me flesh that out a little bit better because I don't really know poker that well. But I
Yeah, me
thought
neither.
I thought the I thought the idea of, like, when I told that, so people that aren't aware of it, the story is that a drug dealer got into my car. And that's a pretty common thing, by the way. So a drug dealer got my car. He was pretty open about it. I think he was 16 or 17, so he's underage, but he slid across the seat to get behind me to put me off guard, right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
did the rookie mistake by showing my hand. That's the poker, analogy. This ride is for Sherry. That's the only safety thing that I have. He's like, "Well, that's my
Mm.
girl." No, I don't know.
Oh.
So I gave
Mm-hmm.
up I gave up
Mm-hmm.
everything. And so I used ChatGPT to help me flesh that out a little bit. I didn't know how to write it. At first, when I first started using AI, by the way, obviously I'm alive, so the dealer did not kill me, but it felt like he was going to, you know. I'll let anybody read that story if they want. I thought I was gonna die. Um, but no, I think what's really interesting about AI was Ezra Klein. I was listening to his podcast, and he was talking about how,
Uh-huh.
like, he has a team of editors at the New York Times. And what's great about AI is that it's going to help democratize writing. And I know
Mm.
there's this like whole idea like, well, you use ChatGPT or whatever. I'm like, this is my story. And I wrote most of that.
Right.
And I have no problem using AI to create that. And in addition to that, it democratizes the writing. It helps me get it out. But I don't have anybody else to write with. Once I hit publish on this story, it's got
Exactly.
to go out. And
Right.
it feels pretty good. I use Grammarly. The longer
Mhm.
pieces, I'll load into Grammarly and kind of go through it that way. And it's really nice to talk to AI to go through that story. So sometimes I'll ask it to be a podcast host.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
ask me questions about it, you know,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that is a good way to do it. So again, the writing process for me the last 6 months, 4 months, whatever, has been to really hone in that first opening scene, establish it the way I really want to get it established. I'll go back and forth. I'll do it between rides, right?
Yeah.
and I'll
That's what
play.
my next question was when you do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do it right here on
Mhm.
my phone, and I'll go, "Okay, I feel like I got something good," and then I'll go, "Okay," then I'll voice to text a lot of it just to get the meat into that, and then I'll go to AI, ChatGPT almost exclusively to I've used Grok, I've used, Gemini, but
Mhm.
ChatGPT and I are pretty close now. So it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I see one of your stories again." I'm like, "Yeah, it's one of my stories. Let's get it out." And, like, it just adds a couple of nuggets into there that I
Yeah.
go, "Okay, that was really thoughtful." It definitely helps with the editing of the grammar and the spelling because I'm
Mm.
I'm doing voice to text,
Yeah.
and, I'm writing on my phone, and I'm old, so I can't really see everything really well, so I do that. And at the very end of it, to answer your bigger question, maybe was the image, I'll say, "Hey, can you
Yeah.
create an image of this person?"
That's
And
it.
put them in the image in the back seat of my car in a Tesla Y, or with that story, I said in a 2016 Toyota Avalon, make it nighttime,
Mhm.
on the outside or whatever, and kinda go from there. I tried making vignettes that has some motion to them. That didn't work. I've tried adding color to it. I think having it black and white
Mm.
just gives just enough people to go, "Wait, what's going on here?" And then they read that opening line.
Yes.
It's very internet clickbaity-ish, right? It's almost like a book cover. The book cover got them to
Mhm.
the first line, I'll read the rest. And then it's worked really, really well. And the length of it has not mattered. I've had some really long ones that get a lot of views. I've had some really short ones that nobody's read. Um, I've
Yeah.
had a lot of people ask me, "Hey, did you get their permission to take their picture?" You're like,
It's not them.
it's not them. I change up genders, I change up age, I
Yeah.
change up,
Mhm.
a lot of things, the key points, like the story about Dion, I'm pretty sure most people know who he is, so me explaining these from McDonald's is not a big deal. But if it
Mm.
wasn't that, I would probably say, "Oh, he worked at Burger King," or, "It was she
Right.
worked at Burger King," because their
Mhm.
gender and Burger King doesn't really matter to the story, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how it
I
comes up with
appreciate
it.
you walking through that because again, that was I think it's done with such care, and I want
Oh,
that's what I want people to understand is, like, just the way you described that, it starts off with just me typing into Apple Notes, it's a line or 2, then I have some time 'cause, obviously, these interactions happen, and they leave you in a state of sensation and emotion, and just like you're alone in the car, we're all alone with our emotions and our sensations,
same.
and I encourage people to place it somewhere, and I love that you're demonstrating that. You're teaching people, place it somewhere, like, turn on your phone. These things are with us all the time, just speak into it, even if you do nothing with it, right? One of the
Mhm.
things I've done with AI and ChatGPT is dream journaling. So a
Oh.
lot of times I will have these very vivid dreams, and I used to there were dream journals everywhere in my house, and I was writing and they were half written in, and now I've gotten to the point where I basically just wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and the vivid dreams that I have, if I was a painter, I would paint them, but I don't have that gift. So what I do is I just speak into it and I literally have it just hold it. And then I might come back to it like 3, 4 months later and be like, "Hey, let's revisit that dream I had and let's do some interpretation." And it's not telling me, right, this is who you are. It's just saying, here's some patterns I see, right? Like I have this very common reoccurring dream about me going back to school,
Mhm.
right, for a PhD or a master's, and me signing up for classes and realizing, actually, I don't want to take that class. So I'm just not going to go. And, the professor coming to me and being like, you realize you haven't been here 7 out of, and I'd be like, so what? Right. And you're not going to I'd be like, so what? I don't need this. I'm here to learn. And if I don't like the learning, I just stop. But there's a part of me that, the best little boy in the world and the veterans like, oh, you're not being compliant. And so they're going to, and all of those sensations happen in a dream and it just keeps reoccurring, which tells me, hey, maybe you do go back for something, but it's not for the compliance of completing.
On your
It's for the
terms.
learning.
Yeah,
It's on your terms, right?
uh,
And I don't know if the world's ready for that yet. And so I love that it keeps coming to me. And that's one of the many ways I use it. And I think it's done with care. And in your example, it's done with care, Levi. And I love that you're demonstrating that for people and showing them here's how to use it to actually, in a way, connect with people better.
yeah.
Right? There's more humanity in it.
It is, yeah, and so I it's I'm so glad that you caught on to it because, like I say, and people are like, "You should make YouTube videos about this, or you should make a book." And maybe,
Yeah, perhaps.
perhaps, the YouTube videos, would be really difficult because how do you reenact that?
I know.
Right? Because the story isn't what the transaction that happened in the car, it's all the stuff that happened outside of the car that was brought into the car,
Mhm,
and I don't have a film
mhm.
crew to film that. Um, and then I think the book thing is really nice too, but it becomes more of like a Reader's Digest. I think there's plenty
Yeah,
of memoirs of why somebody quits their desk job to become an Uber driver. Um, and so maybe there's a beginning, a middle, and an end there. I don't know.
yeah,
I've been fleshing that out, but I do just honestly, I just get a lot of joy out of just saying, "Here's a little taste to the LinkedIn
yeah.
world," which is crazy because, by the way, again, I hope I post this on Facebook. My mom likes it. If I post it, on X, nobody reads it. If I post it on X, and
Yeah.
I have like 2,000 followers on X. And so it's not like I don't have
Mm,
I have more followers on X than I do on LinkedIn. But I
okay.
think because it shakes LinkedIn up a little bit, I think it shakes it up
Yeah.
a little bit. It's not, I think it's just LinkedIn is so much self-promoting and selling, whereas this is just the
Yes.
experience of work. And that's what I try to express to people. This is work. This is my job.
This is work.
This is work.
Yeah.
I have to do this to get paid, right? If I don't
Yeah.
work, I lose my house. I'm not rich. I'm not a wealthy person. So this is
Yeah.
work, and I think yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts toward autonomous cars and stuff like that? That's the huge things for us
I
Uber drivers.
yeah, that's actually where I wanted to possibly kind of end up in this conversation, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you 2 things. One is a story of my first attempt to use a Waymo that failed miserably.
Yeah.
And the other I will tell you is kind of what I'm future casting here, and we can sort of future cast this together. Um, the first is the story. I was in LA. I was at work. I was with colleagues, and they were like, "Hey, this part of LA, it's a small segment of LA, has Waymos." And they were looking up and seeing the route map, and they said, "Our hotel's right within the route map, and our workplace is right within the hotel map.
Hmm.
How about we call a Waymo?" And I said, "Okay, great." And so, of course, they looked to me because I'm kind of the more techie of the group, and they said, "Do you wanna call it?" And I said, "Sure, let me call it." So I download the app and everything else, and I was like, "Okay, let's just try this out. I wanna try it." And, the way that Waymos work, for those that haven't taken it, you actually have to let it arrive at a designated spot,
That's right.
right? So it has to literally park in its designated spot, and nothing can interrupt it until it arrives there, and only when it arrives there and it sort of syncs with you and your proximity, and it knows that everything around it and you is safe, will it unlock the doors, right?
Right.
Well, we were a little eager, and we got to a place where we were excited to get in it, and we realized we interrupted its pattern before it got to its location of safety. Essentially, as you can imagine, it's almost like an island, like there was an island, 2 lanes splitting, and it was trying to get over to a parking lot. But we
Mm.
thought, well, you're by this island, we'll just meet you there, save you the time. Well, it would not open the doors, and it basically sort of not malfunction, but it kind of just said, cannot compute, too many inputs, locked the doors, and drove off, right? And we are all like, oh, failure, failure, Waymo, failure, Waymo. And what I realized was 2 things. One, I was eager to try it out, but I didn't have the right intent, right? I was probably hadn't thought through like, okay, are you even ready to get in a Waymo?
I
Secondly, I think the other part of it was I was not allowing it to do what it's programmed to do, right? I inserted my humanity, my eagerness, my, "Hey, let's save it some time and meet it by the island," as opposed to I mean, that was real lesson, right? Is like, you can't inject humanity and the generosity into something that doesn't have humanity and generosity. It cannot compute.
not compute.
That was a
Yeah.
lesson. So that was my only attempt. I will attempt again, probably in places like San Francisco or others, but I live in Seattle and we don't have them here yet. And then future casting. Here's what I think. What I'd love your thoughts on this, Levi. I think, given what you've explained, if the future is autonomous cars and there's going to be all these people in autonomous cars, it's one thing to have a group of 3 humans in the autonomous car talking, laughing. Oh, isn't this great? Let's make memories. It's another to have single riders in an autonomous car that are already lonely and literally have no human interaction. as they're going home or to their workplace. And I wonder, this is what I pose to you, I wonder if in the future, the Waymos of the world, because it's a Google company, right, is going to have it where their AI assistant is in there. And in addition to you being in an autonomous vehicle, you're going to have an AI therapist in the car with you who you can literally do the confessional to, and it becomes sort of this taxi cab confessions, but to an entity that maybe, if you so choose, will plug into your own custom GPT, right? And you can have a conversation with it that then continues for perpetuity in this autonomous way. Now that breaks my heart a little bit
Yeah, for sure.
because we will lose our humanity faster than I ever want. But
Right.
that's what I'm future casting, and I would love your thoughts on that.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because it's almost like that's what people expect when they get into an Uber is the ability to have that conversation. If it doesn't exist, that we're gonna fake it. Johnny Cab from whatever that movie was, Total Recall, right? Kind of
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, for that. That's really interesting. The vision that I have, and hearing you say it even made me more think of it is Wally, right? All those humans
Yes,
floating
I know.
next to each other. They're all in their own
With their
little
video
with
games
their
and their
video games,
soda and
and then, "Oh, it's blue day today," and all their stuff turns blue or whatever, and so there's, like,
mhm.
this loneliness of all of these people, um, in in proximity to each other in their own little vehicles. They could see each other, but they can't actually communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, yeah, you know, I'm super excited about the technology. I have a Tesla, right? I'm sitting in my Tesla. I do like it. I use
Mhm.
ChatGPT. Um but we have to find ways where humans can connect, and whether that's a church or whatever. So the book that I wrote is that I have,
Mhm.
like I say, it's still a Reader's Digest, but it's not quite there yet. I call it the fourth space. So the first, second,
Yeah.
and third space, Ray Oldenburg wrote this, I don't know, thesis, whatever you call it, academic paper about the first, second, and third place. First is, your home, second's your work, and third is like your community, again, your church, bar, whatever it might be. But the fourth space is,
Starbucks,
yeah,
yeah.
Starbucks. But the fourth is where you're interacting with strangers. And
Mhm.
the phone is making it more and more difficult to interact with strangers, whether we're just walking along the street or whatever else it is. And the Uber has become this forced fourth space interaction. And I've used the
Yeah.
word sojourners,
Mhm.
strangers traveling together is kind of like, and I think that's the right word. You can tell my vocabulary is limited, so I try to think. I really struggle with that. So I think that's the right way. But, yeah, where will it be? But, yeah, the autonomous cars are it's an amazing thing, and my background's in economics. I think it's gonna be phenomenal.
Yeah.
The sheer level of productivity that we can get out of it, the decreasing price of transportation, it's gonna be an amazing thing for humanity, autonomous cars and those things, except for this interaction, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that saddens me the most, and that's the thing that hurts the most too, by the way, when people talk about
Mhm.
autonomous cars. Great, now I don't have that
Yeah.
naggy Uber driver. And I'm thinking to myself, like, A, I don't wanna be that guy. I'm hoping I'm not.
Yeah, no.
But B, at the same time is like, it's hard. We don't know you. I don't
Yeah.
know you. So there's two humans put in proximity together for the next hour. I'm taking you from here to over there or whatever it might be. Don't you think it's a little awkward that we don't even like get to know each other a little bit? Like we're like
Yeah.
if like I don't want to know your whole history or I just want to, and there are so many people that want to treat us like a robot already. And
Yeah.
they don't even like, hey, my name's Levi. Uh-huh. They'll just look
Mhm.
down and you're like, oh, that's not, so I don't have an answer to that humanity piece other than I think it's going away. And I
Yeah.
don't know the answer to it. I love the technology. I put my Tesla
Mhm.
in autonomous mode all the time, and
Mhm.
I'm blown away by it. I use ChatGPT, but even on my trail, I live in this little village, Cazenovia, New
Uh-huh.
York. I've been doxxed so many times now, and I guess it doesn't really matter. So I live in Cazenovia, New York, and there's this little trail by my house, and I go walking on it, and I think people just say hi. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
rare to, like, make meaningful eye contact, and these are my neighbors, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I like that. It's like I'm supporting my own death, right? It's the way a drug addict might be or whatever by using these tools, right? A drug addict or an alcoholic or whatever. It's like I know it's bad for me, autonomous mode in the Tesla, but it's so much fun. And I know that in 6 months I'm gonna be on the street corner, hustling for pennies to get my heroin fix or whatever. Over exaggerating the story behind it. But I'm so glad that you read the stories,
Yeah.
because you know, there's a part that it's like we as Americans, especially status people,
Mm.
and I think Uber drivers are very low status. All you do is drive people. And I promise you, it is so much more than driving people. And the fact that
Yeah.
the whole industry, to include the passengers, are trying to get that down to a minimum wage job is scary
Yeah.
because it's dangerous for the driver, it's dangerous for the passenger, not just the interaction between the two of us, but we're in the road. And then it's bad
Yeah.
weather. It's nighttime, it's dark, it's hard. So there's that danger aspect to it. There's the
Mhm.
Uber app gamifying everything, trying to basically
I
screw drivers
know.
out of so much money.
Uh,
And so I'm supposed to analyze all this data, and I have a degree in economics and
mhm.
I can't do it. And so in
Yeah.
7 seconds while I'm driving through this intersection going 50 miles an hour and the passengers got their phone playing really loud, whatever. And I don't think people understand how difficult it really is when everything's working against you. There's nobody on your
Yeah.
team. And so if I can get these stories out there and just get that brief little bit of humanity to it, that the passenger knows that Levi, Bronislav, my friend from Croatia that got me into this gig, that
Yeah.
we're all humans and that there's humanity to it. And yeah, like the interaction itself, it might be going away. It's fleeting. Yeah, it's fleeting.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that, one of the things that I felt was this is kind of a warrior trying to hold on to compassion, right,
I
in
know.
his own way,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate that you are doing that in the face of all the things that are working against you. And I encourage people to read about some of the stuff you've done. Like I've looked on your website and you do some beautiful work about helping people understand the breakdown of what is the fare, what is the tip, what gets taken away, what gets put in. Like you're right, the data and the algorithm, it is intentionally confusing. And it is intentionally, almost a disincentive to look into it. But I
Mhm.
encourage people to really stop and think about. I mean, my spouse, one of the most beautiful things I saw my spouse interact with a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers, and the question he would pose, which is a very open, inviting question, is, "Where do you consider home?"
Mm.
And that is just a wonderful question to allow people to open up because it really doesn't matter where you're from, right? It's home is such a personal construct and an emotional thing, and as you said, it just expansively opens up this possibility for conversation and connection, even in a short period of time. And um, who doesn't want to talk about a sense of home, right? Of who we are. And not everybody's a storyteller, but everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And if we can afford that, and if your vehicle could be a studio for that, or a confessional for that, or whatever, I want to believe
Mhm.
that the people emerging out of your presence are a little more compassionate, empathetic, appreciated, maybe witnessed.
Yeah.
And those are ingredients I think that we need in our world right now. So bravo to you. I'm again, whatever algorithm stopped me from scrolling, I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I feel like it's strange because we don't know each other. We've never met. We never had no reason to meet. I've never been to Syracuse, but these are those moments where I'm like, "Damn it, if I'm gonna be in Syracuse, I wanna be like, 'Request Levi.'" But it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. I'll leave your viewers or listeners with a final thought about the Uber
Yes,
experience.
please.
So there is the my branding, the YouTube channel is called Tip You in the App, and so people think I'm really adamant about the tips, and the tips do make a difference. It makes 20% of my income is from tips, so tips do matter, but only about for me, I get a lot of tips, because again, I focus on that but only 4 out of my 10 passengers tip me, and I get a lot of tips.
Mm,
So most Uber drivers get 1 out of 10 passengers tip and stuff like that. What I would say is that if you're not out at the street corner when the driver pulls up, you're costing that driver money. And just
Yep.
if you want them to wait 5 minutes or whatever, that's fine. Just walk in the car, hand them a $5 bill. If somebody handed me a $1 bill or a $5 bill, I would I would go 100 miles an hour. I'd rob a bank with them. It's just an acknowledgement of my time and my effort. And
Yeah.
and I think if I can leave your viewers, listeners, anybody, on the podcast with that, it's just like, the Uber driver's trying to make pennies, and,
Yeah.
yeah, and you think, "Oh, I got a car out there waiting for me." Just understand that person's blocking traffic probably,
Yes.
trying to find out where you are, trying and they're doing it for free. I was in Boston, yesterday, and, my friend, went inside to go get a smash burger. We were in the middle of this downtown area, and I could see all those Uber Eats guys blocking traffic trying to get in and out, and
Oh, yeah.
they're police ticketing. They're walking ticketing cars, and you can see guys running in and out, and they're trying to avoid all that. And I wasn't Uber driving, I was just in Boston driving. But,
Mm,
I can see the Uber drivers also sitting there blocking traffic with their hazards on, going, Please get out." So I would
mm.
encourage your, viewers to just, understand that even if your driver doesn't speak English, whatever, they're all just humans, trying to do the
Yes.
best, and, handing them a dollar bill would be, like, absurdly good. Like, you just walk in the car, "Here's a $5 bill. Hey, thank you for waiting." I would
Yeah.
do anything for that person. I would do anything for that person. Getting and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you 5 stars." I'm like, "Great. I'll give my wife that'll help pay the mortgage. 5 stars." If
Yeah.
people say
Right.
that to you, it's like the most ins I know I understand they're trying to be nice, but you're a five-star driver. I'm like, "I know. Thank you."
Yeah. I know.
That Uber does not pay me anymore for 5 stars.
In
In fact,
stars.
there's
Stars don't put food on the table.
well, Uber will kick me off the platform as soon as they kick off a 4.7 person. I'm a five-star driver, and they'll kick a
Yeah.
five-star guy off, but just as easy.
Mhm.
Yeah, wow, I'm so glad you got a chance to listen to or read those stories. That just,
Thank you.
makes me feel good. Now I get more praise, like I say, beyond my mom. That's really it. So she reads my stories. Levi, you're such a good writer." I'm like, "Thanks, mom."
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you're doing. Look, there's a dignity that you're bringing to this, and
True.
I think we could all use a little bit more dignity, agency,
Yeah.
urgency with empathy. And so I just want to say thank you for trusting me to tell a little bit of this story, and thank you for like bringing the humanity into every interaction. I continue to read the stories. I love them. I actually spend time with them. I sort of like bookmark them and I come back to them
None.
because I know that I'm gonna get emotional reading them, and I don't want it to be fleeting. So, um, I enjoy that being part of my workflow and my workday. So thank you.
Wow. All right. Well, I'll get hopping on that book, Bill.
Please do, and you let me know how I can help on that book.
Fantastic.
And thanks for doing what you're doing, and enjoy your time writing. And we'll be in touch for sure.
Thank you so much.